Hey there, friends. I have something really exciting to share, and of course, I'm going to come to you with it first. As faithful listeners here to the Inventory Genius podcast, I am thrilled to let you know that I am releasing my first full-length book, The Inventory Genius: How to Use Your Inventory to Create More Profit and Keep More Cash. Yes, my book, The Inventory Genius. It is ready to release, and I want to invite you to get your own copy. Now, this book is, of course, going to be practical as it shows us and walks us through how to use our inventory to create more profit and keep more cash in our business, but it's also a little entertaining. So in this book, I weave together my journey, my story, and the story of many of my clients as we discovered through the Inventory Genius method how to create more profit and keep more cash in our businesses. Whether it is paying down debt, or taking a paycheck for the first time, there is so much to be learned in the Inventory Genius. So I want you to head on over to my website, ciarastocklin.com, and grab your copy of the Inventory Genius. You don't want to miss this book. See you soon. Hey friend, welcome to the Inventory Genius podcast, where we work together here to make you an inventory genius. We talk about profit, we talk about cash flow, and we definitely talk about your paycheck. Because at the end of the day, it's all related to your inventory. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome to the Inventory Genius podcast. I am your host, Ciara, and I have a guest with me here today who has a beautiful accent. So I think you guys are going to be so excited just to listen to my conversation with her. I have a very Northern Canadian type accent, so you can enjoy Sarah's voice today. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Ciara. Thank you. So happy to be here.
And you are moving from one coast to another. You are a world traveler. All the amazing things. Tell us what you do and tell us what your zone of genius is.
Okay, so I am a money mindset and creative business mentor. I'm also a writer, and my zone of genius is helping entrepreneurs to tell their story and to make more money. So my two main superpowers are pulling out people's most magical, profitable stories, like the essence of who they really are, what they really want, the work that they're really here to do, the things that people are most passionate about, which, I believe is always the best direction to follow in our business, no matter how many times that may evolve. And to pull out all of the stories we tell ourselves around why that is impossible, or why it would be hard, or why we're not good enough, right? Which is the money mindset side of the thing. So the stories we're telling ourselves, and believing in our capacity to be unlimited, to be creatively wealthy, emotionally wealthy, financially wealthy, time and location wealthy, and to be able to tell powerful stories that impact our community, that create positive change through the work that we love doing the most.
Oh my goodness, so many good things to talk about. I want to point this out. You said creatively wealthy, time wealthy. That's important too. So not only do we want monetary wealth, but we need to be looking at wealth in other areas of our life. I recently heard someone say that entrepreneurs don't necessarily want money, they want freedom. And so that's a different mindset than maybe a C-suite employee or someone in the corporate world, right? Entrepreneurs have a very unique mindset. We want freedom. So we're trying to create wealth to create freedom, essentially. So I'm excited to chat with you today. So a lot of our, if not all of our listeners have inventory of some sort. They sell things, they exchange things for dollar bills. And I think a lot of times in retail, it's very difficult because we're relying on consumer behavior. And so we start to tell ourselves really incorrect stories about who our customer is and what we're really good at. So maybe we had a thriving business when we launched and now sales are down, and we start doing all these crazy things and adding complexity. How can we dial back to who we really are and what we were really intending with our business when we started, even if we have inventory, even if we have products?
That's a great question. So, one thing that I have learned from my entrepreneurial journey is mindset is everything. And the stories that we tell ourselves produce the reality that we create for ourselves. And, although I haven't had a inventory-based business. I've had two service-based businesses. As first of all, as a copywriter, and I had my own copywriting agency where I managed a team of writers, and now my coaching business where I have digital information products. And, that's the main thing that I sell along with my mastermind and one-on-one coaching. And no matter the different type of offer, the different type of client, where I am in the world, like I've traveled to 18 different countries in the last 8 years, no matter the currency I'm in, like all of the different things that have changed. And I think the biggest thing that, has been the most challenging for me in my journey in entrepreneurship has definitely been health. Like I started my business because I had a big burnout in my previous career in film production. And so I did have very limited resources. And it was really in discovering my mindset around my health that gave me the capacity to recover my health, that really led me to being able to do that with money. So I learned that foundational principle that whatever I continue to choose to focus on and continue to choose to take action towards, I inevitably create, with the caveat that we're following what we truly desire. Like this is really like the magic formula for why mindset works, right? And so I was like, if I can completely recover my health from like all these really like crazy intense health issues, like I literally was having 6 p.m. headaches, like full on burnout. My whole life came to a grinding halt. My social life, my hobbies, I was taking my master's at the time. I had to delay that for a year because I just didn't have the capacity to do the things that I wanted to do. So in turning that around, that's what kind of inspired me to, once I discovered money mindset, I was like, oh, I see how this works. Like I have the power to create what I want, even if I've never experienced that before. And so, growing my coaching business to 6 figures, making more money than I'd ever made before, but having more spaciousness and time freedom and more enjoyment, and working with clients who I was just like obsessed with my work and had free time to be creative and get into songwriting and performing and writing my book. And like you say, that was what I wanted. I wanted to have work that gave me flexibility and that allowed me to do the things that I wanted in my life. So it wasn't an either or, and I never had to sacrifice. Like I built my dream life. I built my dream business because I intentionally chose things that I truly desired and decided to line my belief up with that. So this is really key, right? And I think what you're talking about, which is so easy to fall into as entrepreneurs, no matter what type of business you have, is you go to people for advice, right? Everyone's like, get a mentor, work with somebody who's, been half a step ahead of you. And that's obviously very, very valuable, as long as we don't fall into kind of limiting our belief system based on others, right? Oh, if somebody told me I have to do it this way, I have to do it this way. And so if I don't do it exactly like they said, then obviously I'm not going to succeed. And we all have limiting thought patterns, because we've all been through difficult things. And, our thought patterns are very complex. They're very personal. They're based on experience. They're based on who has influenced our thought patterns in the past. But just coming back to the foundational truth that we get to choose our belief system. And that's something that we continually get to clean and fine tune and prune and upgrade so that it's creating outcomes that are really making us happy and really defining our success by our own metrics. So whenever we fall into that, like I'm overwhelmed, or I feel like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill, or I feel like I'm having to sacrifice things I really don't want to sacrifice in my personal life, like my health, time with family, whatever, then we get to come back to, okay, I'm the CEO. I get to make a different decision. I get to make a different strategic decision. What would it look like if I waved the magic wand and everything could work out exactly the way that I wanted it to? And then our job is to get our belief system to match our vision, because whatever we truly believe, we will create. And sometimes that's going to require taking leaps of faith or doing something that nobody in your life has ever done before, or something that your mentors have never done before, but being willing to, adapt and make small tweaks and experiment and do it in your own way, because that's the way you want to do it.
Yeah. I'm reading right now 10x is better than 2x, or 10x is bigger or easier than 2x by Dan Sullivan.
And he had some really interesting thoughts in there. One of which is we want to be 10xing everything in our life. So not just the status quo, I'm growing by increments, but I'm continually like leaps and bounds jumping forward and making improvements, making changes. And he said, when we decide to do this in our business, a lot of times we get resistance. And it's because people are not comfortable with what we're doing because they would not do that or have not done that. And so then we buy into that uncomfortable feeling they have and second guess ourselves, which is kind of what you're saying. Like, we need to listen, and seeking advice is amazing, but we also have to know what works for us. Right? Is that kind of what you're saying? And so I think in a product-based business, it's so easy. Our sales are down. Well, this person said if we only offered this brand, and this person said if we had this, they'd come. And this person said if we were open every Thursday night, they'd be here and we'd have more sales. And before you know it, we have this business that's nothing like we even wanted. Right?
Yeah, and I think, the most important foundational principle is your desire. Like, what do you want? There's a million different ways to get to $1 million or to get to 6 figures, or whatever your goal is. No matter how many times people have told you, like, this is the way it's done, or this is the way everybody does it, or this is the industry standard, or, when you actually get to know people who really inspire you, who have created like really impactful results, the common denominator of that is they've done something differently. They did it in their own way. They've done something that's never been done before. They just thought about it in a different way. And like, that's what truly creates success. And I really do believe that, like, when we align our actions and we really go for the things that we actually genuinely, truly desire, like, magical things happen. Because why not? We get to choose any way there. We get to choose any route there. Like, you're on the GPS, you plugged in the destination of your goal. There's so many different routes. Like, why not pick the one that makes you happy? Are you someone who,
Today I was driving to downtown Nashville. I plugged in the address. It gave me 3 routes, right? Because we're in a big city. And when I lived in Grand Forks, North Dakota, there was one way, but there's 3 routes. And so I was like, you know what? This one is 4 minutes longer, but I would rather drive on the beautiful back road than on the highway, which is going to be 5 minutes faster. I just don't feel like sitting on the highway today. And I got to choose that. The destination was still the destination I chose. But while some people might say, get there as fast as you can, I was like, I don't really want to get there fast. Like, I have time, I have margin. So I love that illustration, but we forget that, don't we? We forget.
100%. And, like, you can want different things at different times too, like, maybe sometimes you're like, I want to drive my sports car with like music blaring down the highway, and that is really gonna like get me going. Or I want to take like a slow, beautiful back route, right? Like, maybe I want to do a season where I'm like, for example, especially for women, right? If we're having kids, like, maybe there will be a season where you just want to outsource everything, or you want to automate everything. And then maybe there'll be a season where you're like, I just want to be super creative and really hands-on. And like, that's what's really bringing me joy in my business. So I think, as entrepreneurs, we have to have passion, we have to have inspiration, and actually creativity is our greatest asset, because the moment you become like a robot, you're going to miss opportunities, or like your industry is going to evolve past you, right? So the way we prioritize our creativity is by prioritizing joy. And the way we prioritize joy is by listening to ourselves, just getting that feedback from our body, from our emotions, like, this feels good and this doesn't. And the more we can, train our thinking and train our listening, and train our decision making to always be choosing what feels good, you're going to be enjoying your business. And as long as you're getting paid and you're not harming anyone, like, who cares where you end up? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I know people are listening, because I have been here too, where I listen to amazing people, in my past entrepreneurial life. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I believe you, but there's just no way. Like, I'm so stuck. I can't. Like, I made all these decisions. That sounds awesome. But how would you help us? Give us a little tidbit of what coaching would look like to you, working with you. So if I'm working with you and I'm like, I love that and I believe it, but there's just no hope for me. Like, I've always made poor financial decisions. I've always done really bad hiring. I'm stuck. What would you tell me?
Number one, I would say, like, I'm stuck, like, that gets to go in the trash. Like, you are banned from using this phrase internally or externally. There's a really great tool that honestly is just like, if all we did as entrepreneurs is use this tool, everyone would have incredible businesses. And It's called the like alignment and unaligned list. So unaligned, if something isn't in alignment, to me, that just means it's not what you're meant to be doing because it's not making you happy. So if it's not making you happy, whatever it is, this can be your like bitching list or like all the complaints that are constantly like on repeat in your head, just write them down. You know, like what isn't where you want it to be? What are you waking up in the morning, get worried about, stressed about? What didn't go the way that you wanted it to go? Like what is filling you with anxiety? And just write it down and like take inventory of what isn't working for you right now. And then you have to take 100% responsibility, right? Especially in entrepreneurship. Like we're literally the boss.
Yes.
If you don't like the tasks that you're giving yourself, change the task, you know?
Yes.
And so literally just write it down and take 100% responsibility. I have created this, you know, whether or not this was consciously created or whether this was just the way that I have been operating up until now, recognizing that every present moment is an opportunity for change. And the only way you're going to create something different is if you take 100% responsibility for making a change. And so take that list and literally like a grocery list, like one by one, cross them out and make another list next to it. This is your alignment list. This is like if you could hit the magic button, wave a magic wand and have this particular situation that isn't ideal be the ideal situation. And, you know, actually practice moving our mind in that direction, because whatever we're focusing on, we're continuing to create, right? So if we're constantly ruminating on what we don't want, it really is that simple task of shifting to focusing on what we actually want. And the number one reason why we haven't created what we want yet is because we haven't defined it. We haven't defined it clearly enough to actually start to take action to make it happen, because we all have that power. So, you know, you could be, I don't have enough clients right now. Okay, cool. Hit the magic button on that. What would the ideal be? Some people might be like, oh, I have an overflow of clients. Well, see how that feels in your body, because actually you probably don't want that either. You probably want the perfect amount of clients, you know? And
the perfect clients,
right? Perfect amount of the perfect clients. And so you could create, you know, get into as much detail as you can in that. Like, I have X number of clients paying for these products at these prices, you know, through this. And then like through this avenue, or, you know, by selling on this platform or with this supplier or whatever it is, that just, and if you don't know, put what you do know would be nice, you know, to the level of detail that you can imagine, because then that's going to give you a roadmap. And just in going through that process, you're in allowing your mind to, again, plug in the destination of where you actually want to go instead of being focused on the destination that's not making you happy. You're going to notice inspired ideas are going to bubble up. You'll be like, oh, you know what, if I like made some moves in this area, or I like changed the pricing here, or I asked, you know, built some relationships over here, it's going to spark some inspiration. It's actually going to lead you there. And so doing that with every single part, everything that doesn't feel good, like whether it's a money situation, a client situation, staff situation, like family situation, schedule, anything, like anything and everything that kind of gives you that feeling of tension in your body, you have the power to change that. Just, you actually have to sit down and redirect it, and to get curious about, you know, really what you want and what that could look like.
So good. That's a great practical work tip that I would love everyone here. We could all do that. We can constantly be doing that. So I would love everybody, if nothing else, take that and sit down and do that exercise. That would be great. So money mindset, I have one last kind of loaded big question for you. What do you feel like is the biggest money mind block that you come across? And when you're working with clients, what's the thing that almost everyone I talk to, this is a money mindset block that we have to overcome?
I think like the fundamental answer to that question is just not believing that we can have what we want. I think that's what it comes down to. And, you know, there's reasons why, and this is really, you know, the money mindset work that it required for me to take to go from like very avoidant, low earner, you know, taking jobs I didn't really want to do, getting really burnt out, to having a business that prioritizes my well-being, my health, my happiness, my creative freedom, and my joy in my client relationships, and really raising the standards in every single area of my life and business, is I had to shift to believing that I could have that. And what that required of me is to like look at why I didn't believe I could have that. Because I think when you have an understanding of there's a reason why we don't believe that, and it's cultural, and obviously everybody's different, right? Everyone's identity and relationship to having what they want, money, whatever your type of work is, you know, our identity is constructed by our role models throughout our life. So if your parents like weren't good with money, or you had money stress when you were at home, or maybe you grew up in an abusive situation, or you've been in relationships where you weren't really seen, or you weren't validated, and you were disrespected. And, you know, culturally, this happens depending on like socioeconomic status, class, race, you know, where we live. We're used to being judged by each other. Like, humans are kind of mean, you know.
Yeah.
There's a
Unfortunately,
lot of judgment, and particularly around money. And so it's a very individual journey. But, you know, obviously women, like, we didn't have access to money. Like, women couldn't even get credit cards up until like the 70s. Like, it's very new for women to have financial agency, to even be able to have businesses, for it to be socially accepted, to be paid for our intellectual property. Like, this is still a very revolutionary thing in like the grand history of humanity. So recognizing that there is just a lot of cultural narratives around in the media, in conversations with family, like particularly in our own homes, right? Sometimes we don't even see it. So really paying attention to how things make you feel, to the emotional patterns, to the stories that you're telling yourself, and recognizing that 90% of our thoughts are inherited from like, or are repeated from the day before. So if you think we've been regurgitating the same thoughts, a lot of those thoughts came from our parents, a lot of their thoughts came from their grandparents. So we're kind of in this operating system of survival based off of several generations ago that's not useful to us now. We're not really under threat. We're not really, you know, we have a lot more freedom. So a lot of the oppression that we're experiencing is actually internal. It's actually fear of asking for more, fear of, you know, risking being criticized or judged when, you know, there were really negative side effects of that for people. And obviously there still are in many countries in the world, but there aren't really in North America. Like, yeah, you might get some haters and some trolls on the internet, but like, boo-hoo if you're living your best life and having things that you enjoy, you know, like we can deal with that. And, you know, obviously, yeah, it can be upsetting, and it is an emotional roller coaster to like go through the process of really reprogramming your entire belief system. But that's really what it takes, you know, recognizing that we're operating on survival kind of thought patterns that aren't really that helpful, and it's up to us to really clean those up so that we are believing that we can have the things that we are physically able to create if we allow ourselves to follow through and actually create them.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing in this is similar to what you said a little earlier. We have to own that though. Like, we have to own, it's my job and no one's going to do this cleanup work for me. Like, I need to dig deep and do the hard work in my mind, in my heart. That is my responsibility. And I find when I work with entrepreneurs that are willing to be humble and take that responsibility, it's amazing to see them blossom. But when I work with people that I give the very same information to, and we just don't make a lot of progress, it's typically because they just don't want to own that hard work, because it's scary. And even though we're a lot of times very uncomfortable in our money situation, it's more uncomfortable to change. So we'll fall back into what's most comfortable, even if that's painful.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, and I will say a big part of my money mindset journey was looking at childhood trauma and like childhood sexual trauma that I had oppressed. And so the trauma healing process, it's really complex, right? Like, if we don't have the safety and the security and the tools to be able to process real trauma that we may have experienced, especially as women, which is like way more common than is being talked about or is starting to be talked about more. It's really a protective mechanism. So when we're refusing to do some work, it's because maybe we're not well resourced to do that. So, you know, yes, we have to take 100% responsibility, And I think, we are thankfully moving into a time where there's just more awareness and conversation and education about emotional health and how to take care of that, which just really, especially in England, like we don't talking about our feelings. This was a huge growth journey for me. And it's really uncomfortable. But I think you hit the nail on the head. Like we have to be willing to get uncomfortable and know that we're never going to be given anything that we can't handle, and that the support that we require to make the changes is always available to us and will always show up when we step into that. And we get to go at our own pace and, take care of ourselves. So I think like 100% responsibility and like radical self-care, and giving ourselves the time and the space to do that work, because it is work. But I feel like, there can be periods of intensity where you are processing emotional triggers that are like really, we may not have had much experience in dealing with, but we're capable of doing it. Like we can get uncomfortable, and it's so worth it when we give that to ourselves.
Yeah, so good. Well, I'm very excited because you're going to be speaking to my group, my mastermind, and we're going to be digging a little bit deeper into this, which I'm just thrilled that they get to spend time with you. But thank you for spending time here with the listeners. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
So where can people find you if someone is like, I am ready, I need to work with Ciara? Are you taking clients? Where can we connect with you? How can we get help from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am taking clients. It's funny, we were talking about freedom. My mastermind is actually called Freedom Club, and I cover everything from like money mindset to messaging and creating your dream business. And I have money mindset programs. You can find out all about my work at my website, which is withsaramac.com. I also have a podcast where I talk a lot about money mindset. It's called Creative Magic Club. You can find my social media through my website. Please reach out, say hi, let's have a conversation.
So good. And you're very active on Instagram. So that's if someone's like, I just want a little starting point. Like I want to just know a little bit more, follow her on Instagram, because you are live in the stories and you give us lots of tips and you collaborate with other entrepreneurs and coaches. So lots of good places. We'll put all those links in the show notes. So if you're driving, listening to this, or you don't have a way to write things down, you can find them in the show notes later. Thank you, Ciara. I'm excited about continuing to work with you.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. And thank you for tuning in today to the Inventory Genius podcast. If you know about someone who could use some of these words of wisdom, please forward this on. Please share this with all of your entrepreneurial friends. And if you wouldn't mind, I've never asked, I don't think, would you write a review? I bring on a lot of amazing guests, and I would love for you to just write a review and tell other listeners why they should listen to the Inventory Genius podcast. That would mean a lot to me. So this is my first ask. Here we go. Let's see if anyone does it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.
Hey friend, thank you so much for tuning in today to the Inventory Genius podcast. If there's something that you heard today on the podcast episode and you want to dig deeper into becoming an inventory genius yourself, I want to invite you to head on over to my website, ciarastocklin.com, where I have multiple ways that you and I can work together on your inventory. I want to help you with your profit, your cash flow, and your paycheck, because at the end of the day, it's all related to your inventory. So head on over to the website, connect with me. I'll work with you soon. See you then. Hey boutique owner, are you ready to go from drowning in busy work to dreaming about the future? Simple Strategies Group creates automated marketing systems that work 24/7 so you do not have to. And you know how important I tell you it is to have automated, simplified systems. And that's why you need to get a hold of Liz. Liz Whitehead is a certified Klaviyo Master Silver partner as well as a certified PostScript partner. She knows her stuff. She works with e-commerce product-based businesses to implement email and text marketing strategies that build trust and nurture your customer relationships. She wants to do this for you so that you can start to focus on the front lines of your boutique business. So visit simplestrategiesgroup.com for more info. That's simplestrategiesgroup.com.